So, yeah, welcome. It's not the first time that Groningen had a large event for the LGBT plus community. There was, for example, the Roze Zaterdag of 1985 and that of 2011. There were the Rainbow Weeks, yet in all these years, Groningen still never had its own gay or queer pride. And we thought that it was high time for Groningen to get its own pride. Closer? Yeah? Okay. Better like this? Okay, great. So why did we choose to call this event Queer Pride rather than Gay Pride? Well, first of all, we think that the word queer is more inclusive than just gay. It can include everyone in the LGBTQIA+ community. We think that's really important. So second, the word queer also has a political significance for us that goes beyond the labels of LGBTQIA+. For us, it stands in direct opposition to white cis heteronormativity. This kind of idea that everybody has to conform to the standard of the white gay male, kind of, and who looks kind of like not that different from a straight guy, basically. Not too queer or something like that, right? For us, the word queer stands in opposition to capitalism, to neoliberalism, and to the practice of pinkwashing by corporations that are not truly supporting the LGBT plus community, but that are just like doing this just to show, just to get to sell some stuff, basically. Also called rainbow capitalism. For us, queer is explicitly inclusive of marginalized groups within the LGBT plus community. For example, queer immigrants, asylum seekers, people with disabilities, people of color, non-binary folks. Because of all this, we have also chosen not to rely on corporate sponsors for our events. As I was saying in an interview that I just did, having corporate sponsors also would force us to make our event less political, and we didn't want that. We want this event to be radical and really protest for our rights, for our emancipation. So instead, we are funded by several funds that sponsor activism and that are not oriented towards making a profit. We are extremely grateful.
Donations, those are where the biggest funds.
Yes, and donations, and I was about to say that, yes. Yeah, so we are extremely grateful to the following funds for supporting us. Het Zwarte Gat, het Actiefonds, Actiefonds for Youth, Trutfonds, and the Groningen municipality also chipped in. But these aren't the only ones who've made this event possible. More than anything, we owe the success of this event to you, the LGBTQIA+ folks and allies who are in Groningen or who are connected to Groningen and who donated, over the course of our fundraiser, donated more than 700 euros for the organization of this event, which was way above and beyond what we expected. So congratulations to you for making this first Queer Pride happen. It's amazing. So this has made it possible for us to organize a Pride that is truly by the community and for the community. Today, we celebrate the beautiful diversity of the Groningen LGBTQIA+ community. But today is not just a celebration. We also want to bring Pride back to its origins, when it was still a protest for the emancipation of the LGBT+ community. The Netherlands prides itself on being tolerant and inclusive of everyone. But like many of the more marginalized people in my community can attest to, this Dutch tolerance always has its limits. Act normal, that's crazy enough, is the famous Dutch motto. In practice, this attitude leads to those people in the LGBT+ community who do not conform to the normative ideas of what a man or a woman should look like or how they should behave, facing disproportionate levels of harassment, discrimination and erasure compared to, say, gay, gender-conforming white men. And this must end. And that is why today we gather to protest against the ongoing tyranny of cis heteronormativity. Until lesbian couples can walk hand in hand without being catcalled or called slurs, there is no justice. Until gay men are no longer asked to perform masculinity according to standards set by straight men, there is no justice. Until bisexual people are taken seriously in their sexuality and no longer erased from both queer and straight spaces, there is no justice. Until transgender folks are respected in their identities and granted autonomy over their own bodies, there is no justice. And until people can be visibly queer in the nightlife of Groningen, or any other Dutch city for that matter, without facing harassment, there is no justice. And I shouldn't forget the I. Until non-consensual surgeries on intersex children are put to a stop, there is no justice. And finally, until asexual and aromantic folks are no longer affected by all kinds of discrimination, exclusion, and erasure, there is no justice. Until black people and people of color are no longer facing harassment and discrimination both outside queer spaces and communities, but also within, there is no justice. Until queer events and spaces are made accessible to people with disabilities and neurodivergent people, there is no justice. And until we fully accept the diversity of body shapes that exists in this world in all its beautiful glory, there is no justice. And finally, until the Dutch immigration services stop expecting LGBT+ asylum seekers to conform to Western standards of gay culture in order for their asylum requests to be approved, there is no justice. And until the corporations stop exploiting the LGBT+ community for profit, there is no justice. So today we march for the freedom to be ourselves in all our wonderful diversity. Today we march to end discrimination, exploitation, and harassment against our community. Today we march for justice. Yeah!
Hello everyone, can you hear me in the back? Oh no, nope. Okay, first off, can everyone on this side and in the back please go forward so you can hear everyone? Let's move. On the other side? You all? I see you. Cool. First off, I'm Helene. I and all of us, we welcome you to the first Queer Pride of Groningen, as Verle has represented us, but I'm saying this again, welcome. You might not know this, over half a year ago, a bunch of different people from all over Groningen came together and came up with the idea of organizing a pride that is not commercial, a pride that is for the people, by the people, and specifically inclusive to the most marginalized parts of the LGBTQIA community. I can't say this enough, specifically inclusive of the most marginalized. For this very reason, we ask everyone here to be aware that we want this event to be as safe and inclusive as possible, especially towards those most marginalized queer siblings, to celebrate, but especially also protest. So Because we want this event to be inclusive and safe, most importantly, that means we will not tolerate racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, queerphobia, ableism, or any other form of discrimination. Yeah. Do you agree? We also ask you to respect each other's boundaries. Yes, we want everyone to be safe and happy, because if this revolution isn't accessible, it's not a revolution, right? If you have any concerns, you can talk to the security and support people in the yellow vests. Where are you? Yellow vest people? Put up your hands. Yes. And if you need first aid, also find the yellow vested people. Big disclaimer, there's probably a lot of people taking pictures and videos. So if that's not safe for you, if you don't want to be on the pictures, please come to us, to the people with the organizer badge. We will make sure or try to find a way to not have you on those pictures. And additionally, because everyone's taking pictures, on the event you'll find a drive where you can upload all the pictures that you want to share with each other, so we have a collection of hopefully thousands of pictures and videos. Okay, so the structure of the event, just to give you all a heads up, we will start with the speeches, then we will form blocks. We will march through the city, come back, have a get-together for a bit and have speeches, amazing speeches, if I say so, and performances. Then we'll close off, and heads up to everyone, you better get ready because tonight there's the after party. At 11 at the HSA, there's going to be drag performances, DJs, dancers, everything. If you're not there, I don't know.
So we have a few more speakers and performers that we wanna introduce to you. Millie, are you ready? First off is Millie.
How y'all feeling? Good? It's so amazing to be here at the first Pride and also be one of the first Black trans women to perform for Pride, which is amazing. I can't believe it. Yeah. So, the first song I'm going to perform is one that reminds me of my transness, and I think it reminds me of what it means to be trans. It's a poem that was turned into a song. It's called Caged Bird. So here it goes. Right now I feel like a bird, caged without a key. Everyone comes to stare at me. So much joy and revelry. They don't know how I feel inside. Through my smile, I cry. They don't know what they're doing to me, keeping me from flying. That's why I say that I know why the caged bird sings. Only joy comes from song. She's so rare and beautiful to others. Why not just set her free so she can fly, fly, fly? Just let her fly, 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 for the whole world to see. Oh, oh, she's like a caged bird, fly. Oh, just let her fly, just let her fly, just let her fly. Spread her wings, spread beauty.
Anticapitalista, 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 anticapitalista.
So shall we try this one time the way I love to do this? Okay, we go down. Go down. You know this. Anticapitalista. Anticapitalista. I can't hear you. Anticapitalista. 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 Refugees are welcome here. We're here. We're queer. 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 Refugees are welcome here. We're queer. Refugees are welcome here. We're here. We're queer. Refugees are welcome here. We're here. We're queer. Refugees are welcome here. We're here. We're queer. Show me your face. Refugees are welcome here. We're here. We're queer. 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 Refugees are welcome here.
Anticapitalista, 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 anticapitalista.
Big applause for y'all. We'll wait a little bit until everyone has arrived again. And then we have a few more speeches and another performance. Everyone, big applause to yourselves. Please move around. That was a historical event and you've just been part of it. And there's more to it because we now have a few more speeches and a few more performances. Another performance, excuse me. And the first person I want to introduce is Max, who was supposed to speak at the end of the previous block of speeches, but we kind of ran out of time. So yeah, give the floor to Max.
Yes, you can also sit down. I see some people sit down. If that's more comfortable for you, that's great. My voice is a bit, well, not too present. It was gone completely yesterday, but I think today it's okay. So, I wanted, well, hey and welcome everybody. I'm glad to see that so many people came to Queer Pride Groningen 2019. This is the first Pride event like this in Groningen, and you're all part of queer history of the city now. So you can be really proud of yourself for coming out today and being here. I'm Max, I'm one of the co-organizers of this event. I'm a member of a couple of activist organizations here in Groningen, and I wanted to talk about the need for solidarity today. I think we all feel that today we live in really complicated and polarizing times. On one hand, we can be here and have these beautiful events out in the open and public, and we can celebrate diversity. But on the other hand, we see that there is more and more people that are threatening minorities like us. And there's this link to the rise of the far-right parties, not just in the Netherlands, not just in Europe, but really globally. We have the AfD in Germany that fuels hate against people of color and Muslims, Vox in Spain, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Trump in the US, UKIP in the UK, Rassemblement National in France, and of course the FVD in the Netherlands, who recently... and many more who have recently hosted a forum against genderism, and they really spew vile transphobic conspiracy theories, and they are really like white supremacists and racists. So I think these parties and groups really represent rotten projects. They are projects that aim to drive the divides between us, to split society. They try to play one minority against another, for example, by making Muslims and people of color scapegoats for homophobia, even though they themselves are deeply rooted in homophobic ideological structures. In times like this, I think it is as much as ever important to practice solidarity. There is an old saying in the socialist labor movement, and I have quoted this on the square, well, on Wachtplein, to be honest, before, and the saying is, an injury to one is an injury to all. What this means is that if the rights of trans people are under attack, all of us come out to fight for them. That if the rights of Muslim people are under attack, all of us come out to defend them. That if refugees are discredited and scapegoated, we stand up and speak up. That if gay people are under attack, all of us show up. That if workers' rights are under attack, then all of us come to fight back. Make no mistake, the far right represents an attack on all of society. It represents attacks on rights that the labor movement, the queer rights movement, and the anti-racist movements have fought for decades. Everything we have today was fought for by people that came before us. And today we need to defend it and acknowledge that we, all of us, no matter what part of society we are from, stand on the shoulders of giants. Showing solidarity means making space for minorities and underprivileged groups and defending their safety everywhere. That means fighting for democracy, not only in parliaments, but on the streets, in your bars and nightclubs, in your unis and schools, in your workplaces, and at the dinner table with your families. If minorities are attacked, we need to show solidarity and speak up. Because if we don't speak out now for those that are weaker than us here, then there won't be anybody who speaks out when the time for us has come. So yes, Pride is a celebration of diversity, but let this Pride today also be a celebration of solidarity. Let's show each other that we can be there for each other, even if it feels like the whole world is against us. Let's fight loud and proud for our space in society and show everyone that we won't let ourselves be played against each other, because the people united will never be divided. The people united will never be
divided. The people united will never be divided. The people united will never be divided. The people united will never be divided. The people.
Thank you very much for listening. I wish all you beautiful people a beautiful day and show Groningen how fabulous and strong we can be.
Fabi, are you ready? No? Well, you better try to get ready.
Hi, let's see. No, I'm gonna. Is it good? Okay. It's moving. That's not gonna work. Who has done that? It's done that with Mike. Jesus Christ. What is this? It's possessed. Yeah, much better. Thank you very much. Okay, maybe some people know from the program that it's my time to speak, but I actually decided to change the topic. And first of all, I'm gonna announce some content warnings, because I think that's important. Content warning: depression, racism, suicide, homophobia, transphobia, interphobia, and questionable religious views. Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Ashbor. I am a non-binary person. I am 23 years old. 23 years is not such a long time, but for more than 11 years, I felt like I should not be alive. For the longest time, I struggled with the reaction of my family to my coming out. When I was 14 years old, I first came out to my mother. I told her I was into girls and that I was probably bisexual. I really wasn't sure. And she responded way worse than I expected. While I was crying next to her, she kept saying that I am a kara boska, a punishment from God. I cried a lot that day, and I felt the first serious impulse to kill myself. I knew that I would not survive alone, so I called a suicide hotline. I have to speak up like this? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I would have liked to know that before.
You can go back.
No, that's ridiculous. I'm not gonna go back. So, I knew that I would not survive alone, so I called a suicide hotline. They never picked up, and I felt like I reached my lowest point. I really wanted to die. Yeah, I know, hilarious. When I was 18 years old, I felt like things were going a bit better. My parents split up, and my mother was more lenient with me. She didn't really care what I was doing, and so I used that time to come to terms with my gender identity. There was a short time in which I tried to be the most feminine woman alive, and I felt spectacularly at it. Around that time, 2 of my friends came out as trans, and we were able to support each other. One of them made a banner for me, and that was when I first felt like I was in control of things. My mom didn't deal well with my changes on the outside. She wanted a good, Catholic, straight, cisgender daughter, and I was none of that. So, she proposed a weekend in Poland, near Stargard Szczeciński. I agreed to go with her because I wanted to fix our relationship, but that didn't happen because the actual reason for going there was to visit an exorcist. She drove all the way from Cologne to Poland to fix something that was not broken. But what broke was my heart and my trust in her. I am 23 years old now, and I still find it, and I'm still trying to find the love that was missing from my family. And for most, I have found it in my community. I have found it in my friends and my chosen family. I have found it in my partners, and I have found it in activism. The activist community is amazing, but just like the rest of society, it is influenced by existing societal structures. I'm tired of people assuming I am a woman. I do not want to be treated like I'm weird for not identifying with any binary gender. I have felt most accepted by the... I have felt most accepted by the Groningen Feminist Network. I want to thank people who are so validating of my identity, but it also feels like I shouldn't thank them because that should be a normal thing, right? To treat someone with respect. But sometimes it just happens when I'm out and I'm trying to have fun and people walk up to me and ask whether I have a pussy or penis. Or they are so fascinated by it and treat me like a scientific discovery. Stop it. If I wanted that, I would go to the gender team in Groningen. I am very happy with my chosen family. I have a wonderful wife, Bela. Give it up for her! An amazing boyfriend, Lawrence, a partner named Soph, and a cat called Peter. They all accept me for who I am, even my cat. But it is hard to admit that it hurts me sometimes that my biological family does not accept who I am. They say that early attachment styles determine how you will connect later in life. If you have parents that are detached and distant, you will struggle later on. But I don't want to struggle anymore. This world was not made for non-binary people. It was not made for trans people. It was not made for fat people. It was not made for disabled people. It was not made for immigrants. It was not made for mentally ill people. It was not made for abuse survivors. It was not made for people who attempted suicide. It was not made for people with a caring and sensitive soul. Well, for that, I say, let's take it back. This world is ours, and I know most of you care about it. So let's make sure that no queer kid has to grow up in fear. Let's make sure no trans... Let's make sure no transgender adult struggles with self-hate. Let's make sure that no intersex baby gets their genitals mutilated. Let's make sure that our activism is inclusive. Let's make sure our communities are a safe place for the most marginalized in our society. Let's make sure that we stop the killing of people of color and trans women of color. Because honestly, if we don't do it, who else will?
Hello everyone, I'm Lena, I use they, them pronouns, and I'm talking to you today about asexuality and aromanticism. And the content notes I have are for discussions of identity, sex, love, intimacy, relationships, ableism, and I'm mentioning procreation. Until a few years ago, I thought I was straight. I wasn't very happy about that, but I figured I'd make my peace with it eventually. My understanding of sexual orientation was basically that you could be either straight, gay/lesbian, or bi. And most importantly, that if you aren't straight, you just know. I didn't just know anything, and as hard as I tried, I never felt attracted to any girl, so that was that. While my girlfriend started dating and maturing in all kinds of ways, I felt like I got left behind in our childhood. Instead of making out with guys and experimenting with romance, I just wanted to read in peace, watch films, and sneak through the woods with my friends. I'll get there eventually, I told myself. I'm just a late bloomer. Although a small voice in the back of my head told me that I was pretty much consoling myself, since I was probably too weird and infantile for anybody to want me anyways. I felt both unwilling and incapable of being attractive girlfriend material, and frustrated with the fact that being a woman seemed to come so much more easily to my friends in every way. In retrospect, that makes a lot of sense, seeing that I'm non-binary and trans. At that point, though, I didn't know that yet, and I couldn't grasp my own confusion with gender and sexual identity, so that I just seemed to fail at growing up. As I hit 20, I began to think that something is seriously wrong with me. Like, how late can you be in having your first crush? Maybe I wasn't a late bloomer. Maybe I was just too self-involved to see the beauty in others. Maybe I was too emotionally unavailable to form meaningful connections to other people. Maybe I was too cold-hearted to fall in love. I wouldn't figure out that I was asexual and probably aromantic until I was 24, when I stumbled across a whole community of people who grew up with the same or similar confusions and self-doubts as me. Like with many marginalized identity, there is information about us if you know where to look. But with basically no representation, it can be hard to understand what you're even looking for. Before I read up on it, I had heard the term asexuality used for organisms that reproduce without sex, for celibacy, and as an insult for people who cannot get laid. None of that made me think that this word could hold any answer about my questions about myself. But what I eventually found out is that asexuality is, put simply, just the absence of sexual attraction. In practice, it can be a bit more complicated, where some people under the ace umbrella develop sexual attraction once in a while or under specific circumstances. But absence of sexual attraction is a good starting point to grasp the essentials. Some of us fall in love, some don't. Some have romantic relationship, others don't. Some of us enjoy sex, some are repulsed by it. Some have a high sex drive, others a low one. What unites us is that we never, to rarely, experience sexual attraction to others. Romantic attraction is generally independent from sexual attraction. You can be pan-romantic and homosexual at the same time, or aromantic and heterosexual. I am 90% certain that I am not only asexual but also aromantic, just based on how much of a mystery romantic attraction still is to me. But honestly, it's difficult to tell, because most of the love stories I've heard, sex very much muddies the water. If you have a crush, you want to touch them. If you love somebody, you desire them as well. I remember that as a teenager, whenever I wanted to figure out whether the attraction I felt for somebody was friendship or something else, I used to consider whether I wanted to have sex with them, or at least make out. At that time, the only thing about that seemed weird to me was that the answer was always a solid no. I never questioned my method, I only worried about my result. From what I've seen, most of us in the ace community start off more ready to question ourselves than the common assumption that sexual attraction is basically the most natural thing on earth, the one thing that all humans and most non-human animals have in common. According to the stories and representations we get, the only people who do not want to get into their fellow humans' pants and fall in love every once in a while are a very particular brand of villains or hyper-intellectual eccentrics, who are supposedly too removed from their humanity to access their own emotions. There's a lot to unpack with that idea, which dehumanizes not only asexual and aromantic people, but also many kinds of neurodiversity. For now, let me just say that, considering that that's the most common representation we get, it's no wonder that so many of us think we must be broken. If heterosexual attraction and heteroromantic love are the most basic indicators for humanity, then surely the absence of either must make us monstrous or robotic. Learning that it doesn't is quite a process. That process means reconsidering how we and those around us evaluate different kinds of relationships and different ways of expressing love. And it means searching for models for rich lives that do not revolve around monogamous partnerships and procreation. Why do we so often describe romantic love as something more than friendship? Why can it not simply be something different? And why do we treat sex as the ultimate expression of romantic love? What about other kinds of intimacy? Sometimes, when I explain asexuality and aromanticism to people, they react with pity or sadness, assuming my life must be empty. But for me, finding my sexual identity helped me understand that love, intimacy, attraction, romance, pleasure, and sexual intercourse are all very different things, and that each can take many forms, all of which have their own value. I treasure the closeness and vulnerability of late-night pillow talks during sleepovers, and the little everyday gestures by which my friends let me know that they care, knowing that I don't have to be alone when I don't want to be. For me, unpacking my expectations of romance widened my perspective, because my future lies not in one, but in many connections, in the maintenance of friendship and community. Until a few years ago, I did think I was broken, and that I couldn't have a full life until I was fixed. And I know that all over the world, at this exact moment, there are teenagers and adults wondering what is wrong with them and how they can fix themselves, and why they don't quite feel like they belong. I was marching today, and I'm speaking to you now in the hope that one day we will have enough asexual and aromantic representation that people will know better than to question their own humanity when puberty hits differently than expected. I am speaking to you because I know that some of you in this very crowd have just heard about asexuality for the very first time. And some of you who are ace or aro or both weren't sure whether you were welcome today. Because even though we are constantly othered in our daily lives, our own communities sometimes tell us that we are not queer enough. But as right-wing populism grows and conservatives keep blaming marginalized groups for everything that's going wrong in the world, we need to have each other's backs. We need to stand together instead of falling for snowflake rhetorics that drive us apart and serve no one but those who dehumanize us in order to justify their own power. And for that, we have to listen to each other and learn from one another, because there's always one more step in deconstructing our often violent assumptions about common human baseline. One more step on our long way towards liberation. Thank you.
All right, I would now, thank you so much, Lena. I would now like to invite Kevin van Mierlo to the stage. I hope he's around. Yes.
Hello Groningen, how are we doing? Are we feeling proud? Are we feeling happy? Are we feeling united? Thank you so much. I stand here not just for myself, but also for Project Aderen, which is trying to increase queer representation and give us a voice within the Dutch childcare system. It is simply not enough, it's simply not good that mental disability, that suicide, that pain, that estrangement and estrangement is rampant in our community, in all of our communities. And we stand here today to say that no more, no longer, and we will not have it. We will not stand for it, and we will stand up to it. A bit of what I'm about to say is going to be in Dutch, so I hope for those who don't speak it that, well, there's somebody to translate. I guess I'm going to start with reading a little bit of art, a little bit of poetry, in the hope that this phone works. So when I was, well, I guess I have to talk on, hit on some notes. We're going to talk about mental disability, sex work, suicide. And I'll start with an abuse, general sexual abuse. When I was 12 to 14, I was abused by a man who was 73 years old. And the question in my life up until now has been why I've been quite incapable of mixing romantic love with sexual love. And little bit of soul searching clearly and easily pointed out that it was the abuse that of which the trauma I never really worked through. And then the question was then, why did the abuse happen? Because obviously I'm not at fault per se, that's what my parents keep telling me, but the question is, why did it happen? And the answer is quite simple. I grew up in a very white neighborhood. I went to a very white school. I was the only kid of color there, and I think, now looking back, I've always felt estranged. And with this man, I at first had the sense of acceptance, acknowledgement, and that obviously went wrong. So the question is whether I was good enough, ever, if I'm still good enough, if I am here, if I'm good to speak, if I'm good to stand here in front of you guys. And thank you. Nu voor het Nederlandse gedeelte. Het wisselen we er even voor om. Voelen we ons trots, Groningen? Het gedicht heet Goed. Ik ben gebroken, gewond. Ik lig uitgekleed voor je. Ben ik goed genoeg? Het is makkelijk te denken dat enkel het verleden oorzaak is van onheil. Maar ik ben alleen maar in het heden. Ik ben opengesneden, rondgestuurd, moeilijk geweest, niet begrepen, gebroken geweest. Ik ben verkocht als wild, onwaarschijnlijk gedrag, onbegrepen, pijn geleden, geen woorden gehad. Wilde ik dan de dood om mijn leed te verdrinken? Wilde ik mijn vingers van de foto's van hem afbranden? Wilde ik mij van mezelf afbranden? Ben ik goed genoeg als ik uitgekleed lig voor je? Ben ik goed genoeg als ik geld verdien? Ben ik goed genoeg als je het toch beter weet? Als ik het toch steeds weer beter weet? Ben ik goed genoeg of ben ik toch steeds weer vergeten? Ik sta hier vandaag in Groningen op een podium en ik ben te boven gekomen en wij zijn goed genoeg. Er is vandaag al meerdere malen gesproken over het feit dat rechtspopulisme opkomt. Maar dit is niet het enige wat er tegenwoordig gebeurt. De groene golf, de green wave is happening. 41% van de Europese bevolking is opgekomen om te stemmen. Dit is het meeste in 20 jaar. Wij staan ook op, wij stemmen ook. Onze stem geldt eveneens. The people united will never be defeated. Samen staan wij hier, samen zijn wij trots en samen groeien wij door. Wij zijn goed genoeg. Dankjewel Groningen.
By Elaine Rook. Is she around?
Yeah, coming.
Yes, there she is. Are you okay taking being the last performer? How does that feel?
It's all right. I'll do it.
You have the honor of closing this.
I mean, it's not like I got a chance now.
We love you!
A lot of people were pulling on.
Yeah, okay, wait, I'll hold it. Alright, so can everybody hear me? Cool. So I'm gonna do poetry. It's one poem. Have you ever been with a girl? He asked. Yes. She had woven the sunlight through her hair. Her smile seemed to tell me that joy was our little secret. I kissed her lips underneath the leafy cover of treetops and wrote odes to her freckled face. She was like vodka. She made me spin, smashing my laughter through hers. She left me with a fucking headache. I prayed to regret it, smoked Marlboros from a classmate. It was the only thing that hurt, like missing her, and I didn't want to forget. Have you ever been with a girl? He asked. Yes. She wrote poetry about women and her life. I was lonely, she was solitary. I spent 4 hours in a train, waiting to feel warmth, wrapped fingers around soft skin, placed lips upon velour and collarbones. She fell asleep until my train left, murmured stay over, murmured bye around her German import cigarette but didn't wave. She asked me to come round again, wanted to prove to me that she could make me come. She won. Have you ever been with a girl? He asked. No. We were bubblegum children, too old to play house, too young to give up the game, to stop to make the gum bubble pop. She was my first obsession. When she laid herself next to me, my fingers itched and my thoughts ruminated her name. I think it's possible to love someone too much to touch them. Have you ever been with a girl? He asked. Yes, no, perhaps I'm not all too certain what we were, but I loved her more than spring children loved the lambs, than evening sky loved the stars. I loved her like Icarus loved the sun. She was shotgun stunning, the chambers of her heart filled with heavy hitters. She was a new variety of angels, her halo shone through her scars. She was agony and eyeliner, and I was obsessed with her until I burdened her, and I thought she had been the missing piece of my soul. Have you ever been with a girl? He asked. Yes, I wanted to ruin something beautiful, but I couldn't choose between myself or her. She introduced me to her friends and I did not speak about mine. We were a babbling brook until she insisted to break the dam. I told her I was scared of the water, told her I was scared to drown. She told me she liked cuckoo, but I was cuckoo crazy. I was the wrong kind of fucked up. She framed her wall with photographs of everything she loved, but never of me. I still don't know if I chose her or me. Have you ever been with a girl? He asked. Yes. That's fucking hot.
Okay, that's it, everyone.